One time as a resident, I was doing an anesthetic for someone who had alpha-1 antitrypsin disease with end-stage lung disease. They needed a lung transplant. And they got lungs were ready for them. So it was like 3 a.m. and the OR was prepping, was ready. And I went to meet the patient. And she was just overjoyed to be receiving lungs because she was very close to dying from her disease. Her family was there, and there were tears of joy. And I was celebrated with them. I said, I'm so happy. It's such an honor to be a part of your transplant surgery today. I'm like, let's take you back. We're ready. So I take her back, and we get into the operating room, and I give her, put a mask over her mouth and nose, and send her off to sleep. You usually need a lot of invasive lines for a lung transplant. So we placed lines in her neck and in her wrists, some IVs, an arterial line, and we were ready to go. The patient was anesthetized, ready to go. And then the surgeon came into the room and announced that the lungs that were going to go to the patient were deemed to not be good enough. So we canceled the case. And unfortunately, this actually happens more often than you may think. So we woke up the patient, brought her back to the recovery unit, and she woke up believing she had new lungs. And we had to tell her that she did not have a lung transplant. That was a terrible day for her and for everybody involved. And I learned that to not celebrate until something like that is done, because there are many unknowns that can happen. And that can happen up into that 11th hour. Sometimes those organs can still be deemed to not be viable. And they should not be transplanted to the patient because they're not good enough to sustain that patient's life. So I learned a lot from that, and it was just a sad thing to watch. These things do happen, and a lot of sadness like this and disappointment can happen in medicine, particularly with transplant medicine.